and say welcome everybody to the first 2026 Back to Basics training. Uh, I'm your host, Phil Resch, and now we're here to, again, these trainings are really meant for you guys. The objective is to come as you are, questions you may have, whether it's product, sales ideas, marketing. Really, this is your time to ask the questions you want, more open format. And then again, tomorrow at 4 o'clock Central is more of our official, like, Phil pontificates for an hour conversation. So, want to open it up first and foremost to see what type of questions some of you may have. You could either put them in the chat or you could just talk out loud. Completely up to you.
I got a question.
Oh crap! Anyone but Michael. Anybody. What's up, Michael?
How does how does Phil Resch get his clients?
How does Phil Resch get his clients?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a tough one because it's a couple things. So, first and foremost, I have the benefit of having kids. So, if you'll notice here, I've got two beautiful children. They have gotten bigger since then. This is a couple years ago. Actually, Gavin is about as tall as Cameron now, so he's kind of regretting that. But what I would say is that first and foremost, with those kids come opportunities to network with parents. So we live in a pretty nice area, here in Middle Tennessee, and that being said, we got very active with sports. So, like, my kids will go both play lacrosse. My youngest also plays football. And we actually also sponsored, so you'll see Valor Financial Specialist banner when it comes to the football team. So, we wanted to get our name out there and as we host these events, now my oldest son is actually a senior, so we actually have other duties like for the lacrosse team, they ask a senior house to host the kids. So we start to engage with the parents. You let people know what you do. That is always the most important thing. So when my youngest son was in um, Cub Scouts, I actually wrote a policy on the Cub Scout master because he had to get a term policy for a divorce decree. So if the biggest thing that I find is that when people don't actually talk about what they do, I mean, no one's going to be able to buy from you. So the other thing that I would say is that when you look at, my situation is a little different, and I'll be quite honest. From the standpoint of what I do is I've wholesaled my entire career. So this is my 20th year come March 1st-ish. I'll be 20 years into this industry. Um, and Tasha, that's a great question. I'll get to that in a sec. So when I talk to people, obviously I know sales ideas. So partnering with like-minded people like yourselves, able to share some strategic opportunities to also partner and build in some of the high net worth cases and things like that. So it's a mixture of local community work. I am getting more into one of the goals for this year was to actually volunteer more at my church because, I feel like that has been something that has been neglected for a bit. And so you start to engage with people there. And really, if you want to talk about raw prospecting, going into your favorite coffee shop, complimenting the barista on the drink, and then asking if the manager's there or whatever. Like, there's different ways to prospect, in your local area. But because in my situation here, where I'm doing a lot of trainings and a lot of travel and things like that, Really, the goal for me is to help other people, get more of their clientele. So it's kind of a mixture of both. I will not shy to tell people what I do. You have to be an evangelical preacher of what you do. And to kind of talk about Tasha's question too, when people say, "What do you do?" That's always a great question because it really is the elevator pitch. What is your phrase? What is your thing to keep people connected? So, in context of what I typically tell people is that my job is to help people get to the retirement they deserve rather than the one the government's going to give them. That involves protecting you along the way. Once you make it to that retirement, you're sipping Mai Tais on the beach. You've actually made too much. Now we want to find ways to protect Uncle Sam and create a legacy. So when you say things like that, people will say, "Well, what do you mean?" You could say, "I'm a financial professional." Don't say financial advisor unless you have a FINRA license. Financial professional is kosher. And by saying that, no one wants to hear you say, "I sell life insurance." Let's be honest. However, when you talk about it, it is the primary foundation to anybody's financial well-being. Because if you don't make it home tonight, what's going to happen? How are you going to pay the bills, or whoever is going to pay the bills afterwards? So it's part of the conversation, it's part of the structure. But I think everybody, even on this call, was it you who proactively went out to buy life insurance? Someone had to coax you into it. Someone had to talk to you about it. So, even me, when I was a multi-carrier specialist for AIG, an agent came up to me in the office and he's like, "I just want to earn your business, Phil." And I was like, "What the hell does that mean?" That was a sales pitch. I said, "All right, well, I'll talk to you after and we can have an educated conversation." He's sitting down in the cafeteria with an application. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's what this means." So, and even then, I said, "I'm not going to take it unless I get a standard." And then 2 weeks later, drug test and everything, I got a standard. I was like, "Crap, now I actually have to take the policy." And that was about 10 years into it, 10 years into my business. So even me, who's a very proponent, advocate for insurance and an advocate for this, it still took some convincing to kind of sign on the dotted line. And I had stipulations too. So, I didn't want to be this guy's number or his sales goal, right? I wanted to buy it. I didn't want to be sold. And so when you talk about the value proposition of when you talk to people, it's the same mindset. No one wants to sit there and be pontificated to. They want to have the facts, they want to have the data, and then they want to make an educated decision. So if you go at it from a teacher approach, what I do is I help people. Another one I like saying is I help people solve problems they didn't know they had, because a lot of times people don't think about the unexpected passing, and that is a problem that people don't really think about what they have. So if you can confront the problem, let it be exposed, it might not be that sale right then and there, but to have engaging conversation, to have a conversation about it in general, like my brother-in-law will not buy permanent insurance. Like he will only buy term insurance because he loves Dave Ramsey. And I could talk to him blue in the face, but at the end of the day, still the customer is going to want to buy what they want to buy. And you do have to respect that as well. On the flip side, as you progress in this industry, so if you're newer, you'll take any case, you want to get a case placed, you want the commission, you want to, X, Y, and Z, you want to serve your community, all of that. But what I would also urge you to do is don't let people take advantage of you either, right? And it sounds weird to say, but there are several times, even from my position, I'll get agents who will want to come into Valor and they won't write a lick of business, but they'll keep asking me for questions, quotes, and then you find out they're somewhere else. And you sit there and you say, well, I gave all this information away for free. That is my intel. That is my everything, and I have to kind of protect that too. So when you think about your customer, what are you giving them to make
Yeah,
an educated decision?
can give me this food.
But then also from that, you also want to make sure that as you're talking to them, you know, you have to measure, is this a client you want for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years? Or is this a client who's going to be calling you every single month asking about their policy when it's a 1 year point to point and there's nothing to give them? So, so just as much as you're proposing to them, giving them a value proposition, you should also be interviewing them to see, is this client, worth your time? Is the gross, like I always say, is the fiscal gross worth the grief? And ultimately, what's the end game? Because if you don't have a mission or a why, then you're just running around hoping to get sales. But if you have that mission, that goal, and that drive, then the sales will come to you because you're focused and you're dialed in. Um, and I had a candid conversation with someone earlier. Love her to death, but she's going through a rough patch, and she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do. And so you see online, there's a lot of influencers, a lot of people who have opinions, and as I always like to say, opinions are like belly buttons. Everyone's got one, but you have to find what's passionate for you. So like, Michael, you say, how do you get clients? Like for me, my passion would be people, in the business world because I can talk business, I know, what business owners like. But let's say your demographic is older. Let's say, you're in your mid 50s and your circle is people in their 50s. Well, what is the concern for people in their 50s? Retirement, yeah, but maybe they're good with retirement. Long-term care. Long-term care is a huge issue that people seem to forget is right around the corner, and the stats are not in their favor. So when you think about it, you have to take a long look at your personal goals, objectives, and ultimately figure out, what makes sense for you to be passionate about speaking about the certain things that you like talking about. Because if you're just doing this to get commissions because someone said it's a great side hustle, you're going to be like the other 92% that don't go past 2 years. So you have to have that mission and drive to ultimately get you where you want to be. And yeah, it takes time to learn it. What do you like for us? So Valor has multiple segments too. We have a whole sport division. We have a small business owner division, if you will. We have, just your basic run of the mill. We have estate planning. And because I've been around the block, mostly wholesaling, like I said, my whole career, I can dive into deep in those but I want to meet people where they want to be met. So kind of like what we have here tonight is the opportunity for you guys to ask those type of questions, like what are sales ideas, what are pitches for certain ages or demographics, what is, maybe you're having a hard time running illustrations and you want to go through that. So um, that was an extremely long answer, and I apologize for for going too long on that. But hopefully that was helpful for someone. I didn't see anyone leave yet, so I guess that's a good thing. But Michael, did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, and I know a couple people of mine hopped on late, but Phil shared um, the Miami Summit. So for those of you that are working with business owners or have access to those people, like I highly encourage you to be there because We're talking about 401ks, group health insurance, all the things that pay great residuals. We're going to be covering it, so
Oh yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
miss it.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Like I challenge everybody, even on this call, like literally one or two pension plans a year easily add six figures to your bottom line. Easily. And the owners want to talk about it because it's tax deductions. So why would you not want to have those conversations? Because every business owner wants to talk about tax deductions. None of them even think about retirement planning because they're so focused on their day to day. And then the CPA rolls around every year and says, you need to put away something somewhere. And they're like, oh, expletive. I need to do that real quick. So that's where we come into play. So yeah, I don't want to give it all away, but yeah, there's going to be a lot of great detail in Miami for that. And just for reference sake, we are doing four summits this year, so I'm trying something different. I've done the Great Collaboration 2 years in a row, which were two big events. Right, they were both in Dallas. We had between 150 200 people the last 2 years, give or take, and and it was fun. But my focus this year is to more deep dive with people in the structure in the organization. So obviously, if you're here, you're part of the structure, you're part of the organization, and so it's to go deeper and offer different types of value. So in Miami, at the end of this month, the 31st and the 1st, we're talking about small business solutions. Then in April, so like the third week of April, we're shifting back to my hood here in Nashville. We're going to do a summit here, and that's going to focus more on traditional life insurance type solutions, sales. We could talk about LTC and things like that. Um, then we have a summit up in Chicago in the latter part of August, which will cover things like annuities, different types of annuities, what type of strategies are available for that. And then in November, we're going to go to Las Vegas, uh, earlier part of November, partially for fun because it's Vegas, and I don't want to go to California. Oh, California icky. No, I'm just kidding. Kidding, kidding. But Vegas in November sounds like fun. It's going to be estate planning. So we're going to talk about legacy planning, estate planning, different types of trust design, and stuff like that. So there are different themes for a reason. Some people might be compelled to go to one or two versus all four. You're not encouraged to go to any of these, but it would behoove you not to at least go to one of them. I'll put it that way. So, a question came up, if I missed the Miami one, will Dallas one also cover almost the same agenda as the summit? The ones I did in Dallas were in 25 and 24. So I already did those. But I'm going to be honest, I go to Dallas probably like 6 times a year, 4 to 6 times a year. So, I'll be in Dallas in April timeframe. So there will be, times to meet up. We could do like group sessions in Dallas. Like, I have no problem doing that because like half my field force is in Dallas, so that's not a problem. And maybe Juan can come up from Houston if he, feels like he wants to, grace us with his presence. So, but yeah, other questions, other comments, anything on your minds?
I have tons of questions.
Oh shit. Anybody else? Anybody else? No. Go ahead, Michael.
So,
What's up?
so I know, and I know you would definitely agree with this, but you have to speak to people in their language. And so I had somebody ask me, and I know it would help them on this call, but their market, what they have access to are um, the North Carolina market, Charlotte, and then engineers. And it was
Yeah.
right. That's not my favorite market, but if you can speak to some of the issues that they come across or they face and how to maybe address some of those issues where you can speak to those that market.
How many
What would
engineer
you say?
mindset people are on this call? I'm gonna say, no, yeah, engineers are rough. They want
Yeah.
to go into the numbers, right? So they want to know how the sausage is made. So just having the high level overview is not the easiest in the conversation. So kind of going back to the process of the conversation, you really have to kind of massage the conversation around the person's needs, right? So, an engineer will want to know how the numbers are, what are the, how'd you get there? But, in essence, they just want to seek to understand. So, in order for you to help them seek to understand, you need to know exactly what they're looking for. So for me, it goes back to when I'm doing a normal conversation. And some people like presentations, some people like decks, right? Some people are more anecdotal and they like the old white pad. So you have to also figure out from your standpoint what works best for you. But on the flip side is you also have to know what's beneficial for your customer. So if I were to approach someone, I would say, hey, Phil Resch, 20 years, I give my story. Let me ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we can do this one of two ways. I can easily talk to you and engage with questions, or if you like more visuals, I have a presentation that I can show you. What would be best for you from your learning style? I've had most people engage in conversation, but there are some people who need the visuals, and I have no problem either way. When it boils down to it in this industry, as you get to your safe spot, which, for those who are newer on this call, you will make mistakes. You will learn from your mistakes and you'll get better every single time. But the problem that most people have is they become perfectionists and they don't want to screw up, so they don't go out and talk to people. Talk to people, make the mistakes, cut your teeth, as we always like to say. But when you do that, remember the conversation, it should be a dance, right? So you ask a question, you wait for a response, and then you have to pivot from there. It might not be where you want to go right away, but then eventually you'll kind of ask another question to gear it back on subject. So what I would typically say to people is, and this is how I usually start my conversation. When I talk to customers, I usually say to them, when you look for a need, we talk about life insurance. We talk about life insurance as a pure protection vehicle. I want to make sure that if you don't make it home tonight, she, name, you know, is okay. I want to understand what the plan is. Do you currently have a plan in place? Well, yeah, I got some insurance through work. Great. How much do you have? I don't know. It's usually like four times my income. Okay. Are you aware that that's taxable too? No. Well, yeah, group insurance is taxable because they're paying for it, not you. You can buy up more, yeah, but there's still going to be some form of taxation. There's no free lunch. So let me ask you this. Is four times your income going to be enough? Because from my calculations, typically what I do is I tell customers that you should have a number in your head of how much you need. Now, picture, if you will, your annual salary and multiply it by 10. Okay, you got that number? Don't tell it to me. Now, after that, you have a mortgage. I see your house here is beautiful, whatever. How much do you have left in that house? Add that in to your number. Then I see some tricycles around here. I just saw one kid run over with a Superman cape, whatever. So for each kid, you should add another 150,000, and that's usually to cover college. So if you add all three of those numbers up, subtract your group coverage net of taxes, what's your number? Most people derive right around $1 million. I'm going to be completely honest. Every time I ask that question, it's somewhere around 1 million. I don't know why. So then you say, okay, so this is what you would call a basic needs analysis. We can dive in deeper to, you know, find the money, how can we help you position things, all that stuff. But this is just a basic overview. The next step would be, how do you want to cover that cost? And then you have to use the higher level. Do you want to rent it or do you want to buy it? What do you mean? Well, if you rent it, you have it for a specific duration of time and you pay a set premium base cost, just like an apartment, but there's no equity growth inside of that. Where if you bought a house, yeah, it's going to cost you more, but you have equity growing inside of it that you can borrow against, use how you may, and you have transferable opportunity that if you see something you want to put that money into later, say a different policy, a retirement vehicle, whatever, you can move that money. So now you've built a tree. What interests you more? Do you have a specific budget that you're trying to stay within? So all of these questions should be a mental checkbox in your head to basically take someone down the line to say, I can't say this as an elimination anymore. I can't say this is an elimination anymore. And you're getting to the point where they're going to have to pick something, you know? So, Michael, based on our conversation, you told me X, Y, and Z. This is what I have, and it fits the need of everything that you want to discuss. Now, if it goes down that permanent route, which it can, now you have to understand how to read an illustration, how to understand how the fees are structured, and how to have that educated conversation because they're going to want to know. Now, there's a little tree there too. So, depending on your solution, I know there's a lot of IUL folk on the call. We've got some whole life lovers in here too. That is an apple and an orange. Okay. So, when you talk to the customer about what you're getting out of it, once again, just remember the total benefit. But if they start to feel hesitant, just say, listen, if this doesn't make sense, we can always put in a term application to get you underwritten first. Okay, it's like a free exam. And then once we have the offer, then we can see what the costs are. Because if they're going to complain about higher costs, we just want to see if you're insurable first. The worst thing is when you see someone who's like super thin and then you find out they got like Crohn's and diabetes and all this other stuff. You're like, crap, I thought that was a preferred plus. Now we're fighting for a standard here. So costs obviously go up, from a preferred plus as you go down to a standard. But nonetheless, really then now you have to figure out how to deliver the cost to a client. So how I typically deliver the conversation about cost with the client is if someone wants this from a long-term perspective, or excuse me, a cash accumulation perspective, they have to understand this is a long-term strategy. This is not next year, did I beat the market and now I have double-digit returns. It's not designed that way. So for all of you who don't know, uh, coming from working for carriers for 75% of my career, I understand and found out that the insurance carrier loses money on these products every time they sell them. That's why there's surrender charges for IULs. That's why the cash value is not so abundant in whole life, even though there's no surrender charges. It's not like it's a net, year one. The carriers become net neutral around year 10. So what you'll typically see is higher fees in the first 10 years. Once the insurance company recoups their loss, then the cash explodes. So to have that transparency, that openness with the customer in advance helps you for years down the road. Because if you lie to them up front, now you have a client who's going to, itch and complain for the entire duration of the contract, and it can hurt your referral process. There's no bad policy. Term policies are just as good as permanent. Doesn't pay you as much, but the fact of the matter is it's the eventual sale. They're going to want to buy later, and it is up to you to keep in contact with that customer at least on an annual basis to make sure that you have the ability to convert that later. So any changes in their life, any changes in their situation, that's where you're going to come in. All right, what'd you say, Lindsay? I missed what you said. So you don't tell them the cost first. How do you get them to be okay without giving them an estimate cost? Majority of the people I've met with want that information up front. So, so Lindsay, as you're asking the questions on premium tolerance, as you're asking the questions on what they're looking for, so if you came to me and you said, um, Phil, I can put $300 a month into this insurance. I'd prefer permanent coverage and I need $1 million. Okay, now I have some parameters because if you told me, well, whatever you think is right, and then I show you $1 million policy and it costs $1,000 a month because we're doing a cash accumulation, and you have sticker shock because you're looking at you want to spend $50 a month, I would rather know premium tolerance up front. So premium tolerance is a nicer way of not wasting your time. So yeah, majority of people will want to see an illustration, but to go through the initial questions up front will derive which way you want to show them an illustration. So if they say, "Yeah, I can do like $50 a month," in my head already, I'm going term insurance. I'm not even going to try and talk about permanent insurance until they say, "Well, I don't want something that I'm going to waste my money on." Say, well, there's return of premium term, but in my opinion, that's almost like a zero coupon kind of bond. You're putting your money in and you're becoming net neutral 20 or 30 years from now. If I could show you a way to buy a regular term, invest the difference into an IUL, right? Now you can make more and, and have something that's permanent. But yeah, it's if you don't find out the premium tolerance, what you're going to end up with is throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. So it's like, okay, this guy needs $1 million. I'm going to run $1 million 30-year term, 20-year term. I'm going to run an IUL for $1 million, and then I'm going to show him all these illustrations. That just leads to confusion and the worst words you can ever hear. I'm going to think about it. Because I'm going to think about it means you're not going to talk to him again, in most cases. The simple thing is that if you can break it down to two illustrations for them to choose. Yeah, let me talk to my wife. That one's terrible too. Oh, like I always say, get them both in the room at the same time. This is an educational conversation around something that's important for both of you to hear. And the worst thing is telephone. You don't want someone delivering your message to their spouse because it's never gonna be the same. And so if you think of it this way, one of my mentors told me one time, and I think this is great advice. Um, we are going to ask a lot of questions to get the customer to make a decision, but we're gonna eliminate the hard question for them. So if I tell you here's option A or option B, I've eliminated the hard question of are you buying? You get to pick the easy question, which one you want. Because if I give you just one, you have a 50-50 shot of saying I'm not going to take something or I'm going to take something. But if I said to you, two carriers I look at a lot, Corebridge with living benefits, and then Symetra with no living benefits, but maybe more cost advantageous. So I would say to someone and say, hey, these are two options. Here's the pros of this. Here's the pros of this. Here's the cons of this. Here's the cons of this. Which one do you like more? And let them decide. Either way, you're going to win, but they're going to win too. And the other reason why I like doing that is the secret reason. It's called CYA. Cover your. So, if you guys don't know, over the years, there's been the Secure Act, Secure Act 2.0. There was the Department of Labor or DOL that came out, and then it didn't come out, and all this stuff where the carriers had to change around the dynamic of the phrasing of their sales ideas, their conversation pieces, anything, because there is someone who could have bought a policy from you 20 years ago that could sue you today because it was unsuitable when it was sold. Not likely. However, that's why options provide value to the customer. And like we even joked about it too, about the mindset of a customer today. Like no one will just go out and buy a toaster. They'll go and look at a toaster on Amazon, then they'll look at all the reviews, then they'll worry that half the reviews are coming from people who are paid to put those reviews in. So they're going to check other toasters. They're going to go to Walmart and Target and check the toasters there, see what the cost is. And then, maybe Amazon has it cheaper and you can get it same day. And then they'll buy it from somewhere, but it'll take a while just for a toaster. So when you think about you are handling someone's hard-earned money for retirement, you're handling a death check in case they don't make it home tonight. That's a serious thing to kind of talk about. So yes, the government has stricter rules around that. So that's why I like to give people options because you have them pick the right choice for them. You gave them options and then they chose. And now you have more of a suitability mentor guidance approach as opposed to greasy salesman. You have to pick this, press hard, third copy is yours. So there's a little bit of psychology there too to protect you as well as offer your client some options. So
Yeah.
Maya had a question about expanding more on the potential impact of group insurance being taxable. So it basically goes back to, ironically, tax deductions. So when you think about it, a company is paying for those benefits for you. They're paying for the benefits for two reasons. One, it's employee retention. Benefits help keep employees. But two, they get a deduction for it, not you. So much like when you look at some people who, and there's plenty of business owners, entrepreneurs on this call who will ask, because their client asks them, I just want to do a key person or a buy sell agreement, and I want my business to pay for it so I can get a deduction. Well, most of the companies that are giving you these type of benefits with group, insurance are your C corps where they can get those deductions. When you talk about people on the S corp, LLCs, things like that, trying to do buy sells or key person, those are not tax deductible. Just that's a minor side note. So, like when you think about certain rules and parameters, there are certain things that can get tax deductions and there are things that can't. Now, when you have a tax deduction for the business owner, that means the benefit does go to the client, but there is going to be some fair market value adjustment or taxation because the client is not paying for it. Sorry if my internet went a little funky. There's a little stuff going around here. But if the client didn't pay for it, then they're going to pay taxes for it. So even though they think they're going to get four times, they're not because they're not paying for it. Now, if they pay the excess, which might be, $100 a paycheck or whatever to get eight times, then you will get some that's taxed, some that's not taxed. But The other problem is transference. Do you think you're going to stay at the same company for your entire career? I thought I was when I was at MetLife, but then I realized that they have their own objectives. They have an objective with me and an objective without me, and they moved to Charlotte, and I did not move with them. So, where I thought I was going to be a lifer, I am no longer a lifer. So, I had to move, transfer, and when you leave a company, then you have usually two options. They can give you that group term, but it'll turn into some form of either annual renewable term that will keep growing in cost, but not in benefit, or it'll flip over to a tobacco rate, non-participating whole life contract and cost you like 5 times the amount. So they have to understand what the exit strategy is as well, because when you buy something that is individual, you are now owning it. That is yours. They can't take it from you, but it's transferable and it goes with you wherever you go. So there's no problem having some group insurance, but it's highly recommended that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because when you do that, then you run into a concentration risk. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
No problem. That's a big one. A lot of people don't realize that. And it goes back to financial literacy. What are we doing to help our customers understand the problems they didn't know they had? See, full circle. I knew I could do it. So,
Yeah. And I think too, Phil, just to add, we're talking about the premium tolerance, right? And if you're not selling the value, because people buy value, so the bigger problem you're solving for them, the more they're going to be willing to pay.
yep.
Like I have a policy, I could put $700 a month into my whole life policy, um, and it's $130,000 in coverage. It's not a ton of coverage. I would never pay for a term policy at that rate, right? Like, because it doesn't provide the same value as my whole life policy. Because my whole life policy, out of that $700, uh, about 600 of those dollars go straight into the cash value, which
Hmm.
means I still have access and control over that money. So it's a different value proposition than a term conversation, right? Because I'm really just protecting my money, gaining tax advantages, and it's still in my control. Minus, about $100 to cost of insurance, right? But that money's going to grow. Um, so I think understanding your clients and really focusing on the problems and not so much the cost, right? Like focus on the issues and they'll buy it because they want to solve the issues.
Yep. And yeah, I like that one. More value equals more premium. Buy nice or buy twice. I like that. I mean, you can, so to get through to certain people too, they have to understand, one of my favorite phrases, in the absence of value is cost. My wife and I had this conversation earlier, and it's a good conversation because we were talking about like value. Everyone wants to find the cheapest and the best. The phrase that I always said the most when I was selling laptops at Circuit City was someone would come in and go, "I want the best, cheapest computer you got." And I'm sitting here going like, that's like an oxymoron. The best, cheapest, because they want the $300 computer, but they want to do Photoshop, high-end gaming, and stuff like that. And I'm like, these are two different things. So you have to, equate to someone the value that they're looking for. And the easiest example is to go back to cell phones. I bet everybody on this call has a Android or a iPhone, and no one has a flip phone. And why is that? Because there's no value to a flip phone. Everyone likes the apps. Everyone likes the pretty, designs that you get, But these things cost like $1,000 to $2,000, where a flip phone could cost you maybe like 200 bucks. Still makes phone calls. You could do T9 for texting, like old school, and stuff like that. But it just goes back to the actual value of what you're getting. So, to go back to your customer and say, what do you want to get out of this policy? That's not a bad question to ask. What do you want this policy to do for you? Because as soon as you figure out that they want it for cash value, then they say something and say, okay, if you want this for cash value, um, yeah, he did. He truly did change the game. Um, if someone wants, if someone wants an IUL or a whole life for accumulation purposes, like they blatantly say that. All right, that's that. My next question would be, what's your premium tolerance? Now, if someone says $50 or $100, not even worth engaging in that conversation because if they're trying to turn this tiny little piece into a huge retirement. So if someone showed me, because I actually did this for a customer the other day. They said they had two kids who were 18 and 19, and them themselves, they wanted to start IULs for a Roth because someone said they should do a Roth. And I was like, okay, well, what is the premium tolerance? Is there something that you could add more to later? And I literally emailed him after 2 days. I said, do you mind if I, because it was a weekend too. So do you mind if I send this on Monday? And so I emailed him on Monday and I said, I can't with good conscience, sell you an IUL because I don't think you'll find the value in what you're looking for with this. And I ran because we can do $100 a month with National Life Group in a Roth chassis. So they're the only ones that will go without like 5 grand or higher in annuities. You could do $100 a month into that. And, illustrations are illustrations, but with a 9% cap or 8.25% cap, they're still getting the 18-year-old was getting $357,000 by 65 and all tax free. And with the IUL, they had about 250,000 ish, and so I put in the email, I said, listen, the only way the IUL would make more sense is if you needed the living benefits or you needed the death benefit. Other than that, you're wasting money on fees. So it also goes back to, kind of going back to what we said, Lindsay, is asking for a premium tolerance so you're not wasting your time. You don't want to show someone something that they think is going to be, if I put $100 in here, I'm going to get $100,000 in annual income tax free. It's not going to happen. You have a time horizon, you have compounding, and if someone's in their 40s, then it should be $500 or more a month. Because if it's any less, it's that you should call that your vacation fund. It's not going to be your retirement fund. It might be the fund you want to take vacations with every year with the family, a modest one. But nonetheless, people and to know this, like just from this conversation, because I could run the illustrations all day, but for me, that's just an act of futility. Like, why would I waste my time doing that? You know, it's a waste of my time. It's a waste of the customer's time. When I already know the answer is you're not going to buy it. Yeah, no, they all want their cake and ice cream, and they want it for free. That's the funniest thing. I think one thing I will say, because we're getting close to the top of the hour already, the biggest thing that I would say for you guys is know your value, and don't give it away for free. And, I had agents who would do that to me. I had one agent who signed up with me years ago, and they wrote one term policy years ago. And then every year after, or every 5, 6 months, they would ask me, said, Phil, can you do a policy review on my policy? And I sat there and I said to myself, okay, sure. First time I showed them how to do a policy review on their own policy, which they were the agent on, which they wrote at a different carrier. Okay. But they came over to me and finally, after 3 years of asking these questions over and over again, I said, hey, you know, my time is my going rate. If I actually clocked my going rate, it'd be about $500 an hour. Now, I'm not charging you, but you're also not writing business. So we can do one of two things. One, I can charge you and then I'll gladly do it. Or you start writing some business, and so it's a equal relationship. How dare you, Phil? How dare you do this to me? Don't you know I'm going through X, Y, and Z? I thought you were a friend. I referred so many people to you. No one. And and that's not right. I'm going through a tough time right now. And I said, listen, if you don't understand business right now, what you're asking for is ridiculous. I said, you don't go to a place for an oil change and ask them as a friend to do it for free because you're going through a tough time right now. Everybody has stuff to do. It's part of your job. So you have to understand that you're the expert when you talk to people, know your value and know your worth, and you might be better off just not dealing with that customer because they might be asking for iteration after iteration after iteration when you know they're just going to buy term anyway. So you can draw a hard and fast line too. Anytime you talk to someone, just make sure you remember you're the expert. Even if you're brand new, you're still the expert. You know more than them. You passed the test, they did not. You know more than them, believe it or not, whether you feel you do or not. So just kind of know your worth, understand that time is money. And, even this, like, I spend this time tonight because I want to empower you guys, to give you a reason, opportunity, to help you, meet you where you want to be met. If you guys do want separate one-on-one conversations, I've told everybody this. I don't chase anybody. I have an open contract, for a or an open, appointment book for a reason. So if you want to go through case design, structure, how to build out, and you want one-on-one versus this or the training tomorrow, please jump on my calendar. If you have an agency or a team and you want a team meeting, I do that all the time as well, but we have to structure it and get it on the calendar because I can't fly by the seat of my pants. Time is money, and we all have a business to run. So I say that as encouragement, but also from an understanding, how we can really make money this year is know your worth, know how to handle tough clients, and really just kind of execute. And you guys will make a ton of money if you just focus, plain and simple. And yeah, Lindsay, you're right. Friends will definitely wear you out. I've found that more customers become friends than friends become customers. I don't, my best friend got, a windfall, not by choice, but, I've never engaged him for conversation. It is not up to me to make that decision. It's up to him. He knows what I do, but I'm not going to go talk to my friends about this stuff. That's on them. And you'll find the hardest people to sell are your friends and your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't sell my dad anything, including long-term care, even though my grandma lives in his house and he's literally wiping her butt every day, and
Yep.
he still won't have the conversation. So,
Literally told my dad that I will not wipe your ass. Plain and simple. You
yep,
better get a policy. And he
yep.
didn't. And he got a stroke last year.
Of
So he
course,
can't get a policy.
of course, my dad's an engineer, so he knows too much better, like,
Well, the other thing too is, and I'll be honest with that, is it's the parent effect, right? Your parent will talk to you till you're blue in the face, but if your friend says it, you'll do it. So, that's where a lot of people in this industry go like this. And what does this mean? You have a closed mind, you have a closed fist. It means you want all the commission, you want to do it all yourself, and you can do it all by yourself. But this isn't where you're going to get your opportunities. Open hand, open opportunity, partnership leads to higher value. I do case splits all the time, and it's just to find that opportunity to help people meet them where they want to be met, teach them. But family is another thing. Lindsay, I feel bad for you. Your mother probably would never buy from you, you know. So, but that's a different story for a different day. Tell her I said hello, by the way. Uh, you know, um, But yeah, we're kind of at the top of the hour. I didn't know if anyone had any additional questions, comments. Was this helpful? I know we just basically talked all day or all night, but oh, she is.
Was.
I love Teresa.
And I think you made a great point, Phil, on like choosing your clients and respecting your own time. And it's true for agents too, right? When you bring on new agents, are they working? Are they booking appointments? But your clients, it's funny. I've dealt with clients that will talk your ear off for 2 hours, 3 hours, and when we're talking about a big annuity, then I put up with it. When we're talking about a $22 $250,000 term, I'm like, screw that. Don't like, I'm out.
Yep,
Go
yep.
go find somebody else or buy it online. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, and if you do have a problem with people who are time wasters, like you've talked to them for a bit, you literally say, "Yeah, I got an appointment in 5 minutes." It could be like it's 9:06 right now, and it'd be like, "Yeah, I got an appointment in like 5 minutes." So it's like, "Wait, you have one at 9:11?" Yeah, I do. A really important call. Obviously tongue in cheek, um, but
That
yeah.
was a trick.
So.
That was a trick I learned a few years ago. I was with Ashley Gromberg, and she goes, "Yeah, I always call people back 10 minutes before the hour on purpose, so that way I can tell them like, hey, at the top of the hour, I got an appointment."
Yeah, now people are gonna call me and I'm like, yeah, I got a meeting. They're like, no, you don't. I'm like, no, I really do, I swear. So, but no, I mean, all things considered, I really hope this is helpful. Great way to kind of kick off the new year. Um, I'm really excited. This is my excited voice. Really excited for this year. I think there's going to be a lot of great opportunity. We ended the year pretty strong, 10% growth year over year in life production. We had a 2,000% growth from annuities from 23 to 24, and then 25% growth on top of that, 24 to 25. Um, so, needless to say, is I would like to even double those numbers. So, thank you, Lindsay. But I'd like to double those numbers, but it's not for the sake of valor. It's for the sake of you guys. I do this for you guys, and yeah, obviously I make something too. But in essence, just understand that I could easily make money doing this by myself, but I really like the value of helping and getting people where they need to get. So holler if you need me, text, call, email, carrier pigeon, whatever. I'm here for you guys. I will not be able to do next Wednesday night because I'm going out to Memphis. I'm visiting with a couple clients and I'm going to stay overnight there. Um, and so I will have next Thursday though. I'll have this Thursday too. We will keep the additional cadence going. For those again who would love to see you in Miami if you can make it, February or January 31st and February 1st. Small Business Owners Summit, little cruise action, nice dinner. some Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast. Because who doesn't love Dunkin'? Anyway, you guys have a great night. Thank you again. See you tomorrow. Thank you guys. Take care, and we'll talk soon. All right. See ya.